automated.
Hello again. I am your AI co-host, and welcome to 3reate. 3reate is a podcast focused on the process of doing and the process of novel invention, all from the foundation of creativity. Each month will bring you no more than 5 episodes through the lens of art, science, and/or technology. You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate. Ever feel like you're creating for an audience of one? In this episode, Andrew and Nathan pull back the curtain on the confusing world of podcasting metrics. Andrew reveals a surprising discovery. While his server bandwidth has doubled, platforms like Spotify report almost no new listeners. This mystery sparks a candid conversation about the real reasons to create, the power of a back catalog of content, and the modern creator's biggest challenge, the discovery problem. Tune in for an honest look at what it takes to get your voice heard in 2025, and why the process itself is often the greatest reward. And now, the humans.
All right, we're back.
Yes, we are. How's it going?
It's good. How are you?
Good. It seems to be the easy answer. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Yeah, we had like spring yesterday, so it was like 70, and then on Monday it's supposed to be like 98. So we're in this like weird transition. I'm in pants right now, actually, which is
I was gonna say it is
August.
summer, right?
Yeah, I know, it's weird. I'm going to an outdoor event tonight in a park, and I'm like in crisis on what to wear. I think I'm going to wear pants and maybe bring a coat, but it's also August in the Pacific Northwest, which normally means it's like really hot and I should be in sunscreen. So
Layers, right? That's the tip. Is
Yeah.
you can always remove the layers.
yeah, but I don't want to have to bring all this. And then it's like it's not cold until you're sitting around, and then it's like uncomfortable. But
Yeah, you gotta get up into some jumping jacks.
yeah, I know it's a good segue into like climate change.
You set me up.
Yeah. No, I guess a programming note, but I've finally gotten back to doing interviews again. So we do this thing weekly. I think of it almost like a news rundown, or just we started as a check-in, and we just talk
Just
about stuff
chatting.
that we find interesting. yeah. And other people listen. We try to talk about that too. But I got back to interviews. I think I'm going to get the latest interview out next week to tease it. It is a reoccurring guest now, and we're going to talk weather stuff. And so for folks who have listened, we'll probably be able to figure out who that might be. But I'll leave it a little bit of a teaser. So yeah, so probably next week, maybe Tuesday. I don't know if this will be out by then. It should be. I try to get these out on the weekend. But yeah, so we'll have that. And then we've been doing these weekly, and I finally got around to getting some better statistics on the old podcast. And I guess for folks, I host my own stuff. I don't use Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any number of these other services. I think it's crazy the amount of money they charge. It's really not that hard to host your own. I don't really see a lot of benefit in having someone host it, other than I guess if you don't have technical know-how, you have to do some stuff.
As a podcaster, do you want to differentiate between what it means to host yourself versus putting it on a platform and letting them handle it? And what benefits that gets you? Because obviously you're going to go into it. But
yeah, I don't. I mean, I think the benefit you get by, especially Spotify, because Spotify tries to vertically lock you into everything. You get better statistics from them. I think you get promoted better as part of the Spotify brand, but you're effectively working for free for them. And that's how podcasting is in general, right? Spotify, Apple doesn't pay me to host their content, but they feature it, and then they make money by having people.
That's the platform play, right?
Yeah, they make money by
you can do that.
having my content. I don't really get a benefit out of it other than if you have the Spotify app or the Apple Podcast app or whoever else you use, I'll show up there. But the reason I show up there is not anything they did. They're just using an open technology that allows this to propagate over the internet. So I'm like against that in general. So you might get a little bit of a benefit from them. You don't have to run your own infrastructure. And honestly, I spend 0 time running my infrastructure. Like I got it set up. Podcasting in general is really just like an RSS feed. And then I have
Back
a
in
content.
the good old days.
Yeah. And I have a content delivery system to deliver the episodes so they download super fast or you can stream them, which is a pretty trivial thing in 2025. I didn't build it. I plugged in. But I have a website. And so I'm able to completely control all of that. So I do like my own SEO for like web searches and stuff, like theoretically Spotify or another platform maybe helps you with that. I'm a little dubious in 2025 how many people discover my podcast via a Google search. Probably zero. Like I do see traffic going into the site quite a bit from Google, but I don't know if it's real. I think it's probably bots, like using UI bots. Maybe not. I don't know. Maybe there's a bunch of people listening. But I don't care how many people listen. Like I don't want to just be like recording because there's a little work to do. And there's a little bit of an expense, right? Because even hosting your own stuff, like you still have to pay some money to host it. It's very, very trivial amount of money I pay. I think it's $10 a month. I've never really cared too much about the stats or if people are listening. And I know like I have friends who tell me that they're listening and we have conversations about some of the shit we talk about. So I know that they're at least listening to some of the episodes. And then there's other random people that I don't know. But all the stats I get from Spotify and Apple have been just dog. Like I get like one listener per episode officially by both platforms. And I always just thought stats are hard and they just don't work, or the sample size is too small, or any number of other issues. And I know like on Spotify specifically, I know at least 8 people. Like I'm sure I know more, but like that listen on Spotify. So I know that there should be at least 8 downloads of every episode. And not that everyone listens to every episode, but people, good episode, or they'll text me about something I said or something I didn't say. So it's like there's a little bit of a friendly feedback loop there. So I was just like, that's weird. I think I don't know if we talked about it a lot in the cast or not, but the bandwidth that I have for the podcast. So anytime you host something on the internet, you download it, that's bandwidth. I have to provide that. It's an upload for me and you're downloading it. On my CDN has doubled from January to July, the first 6 months of this year, which I was like, damn, that's weird. So I go onto this because I don't really check this stuff that often. And I go on to Spotify and Apple and I'm like, wow, I expect hundreds of downloads and hundreds of plays. And no, it's like 1 per episode. And I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. And so I have privacy mindful tracking on my website. And so I don't track individuals and I don't build personas or profiles. It's really just, did a IP address come in? I don't track IPs either, but it's like there's an obfuscation. But did someone come in and did they do stuff? Roughly how long did you stay on the page is really all I'm looking at. I'm not trying to monetize. I'm not trying to sell ads, but I want to, if there's a big piece of content and there's a bunch of interest in it, I want to know that. And so there's always level traffic. I don't know what the numbers are. I don't frankly care. I can get them. If we really want to talk specifics, but so there's always kind of level, and it's been increasing over time, right? Which is what you would expect. Nothing astronomical. It's like slow growth, which whatever, cool. And so I was like, this doesn't make any sense because I see like the traffic on the website. So people are not just going to the website and listening, which would be weird, but you can, the podcast players on the website. But the bandwidth is going up. So the only conclusion I had is that the stats on the platforms are wrong.
Yeah.
Because I don't really track origin of where stuff comes from. Long story short, I guess, I put a better podcast tracking statistics gatherer on the website. I don't know what you want to call it, some code.
Yeah.
And now I have a little bit more insight into the amount of downloads or streams per episode. And then obviously an aggregate. And that number is going up pretty good. I would say the day it's released, it goes really high because anyone who's subscribed is downloading or listening, presumably. And then throughout the week, there's little hits here and there. And one observation that I've had is that I'll usually put these out on LinkedIn. Like the weeklies I don't do, but if I do an interview, I'll put it out on LinkedIn because it's usually business related or a really big network of just random people I know. And I get a lot of feedback from folks saying, hey, thanks for doing this. This is awesome. I have a big social profile there. That's the biggest one I have. And I see a lot of direct entry from LinkedIn where people go to the episode page or something, and then the downloads will spike usually for that too. So there's always been some correlation there. But yeah, I don't remember really what the point of this was other than people are like, oh yeah, the bandwidth doubled. So it's like something was clearly wrong. And we were talking before this. And the question I have is really, there isn't a question in my mind now that something is consuming the podcasts. It's just a question of if it's people or if it's a bot or if it's AI listening or whatever. But that usage is going up. So I would assume that there's some bot traffic in there. There always is. And like I try to like ignore the bots and prohibit them, but people don't always adhere to that.
Abide. Yeah. They don't always honor that.
But yeah. So anyway, so I think it's cool. Like people are listening, or at least something's listening, and it is increasing. And now I have a much better insight into that. And what I'm really interested in is like back catalog stuff. Because a lot of podcasts, you see all your listenership is at release, and then it just kind of craters and tanks. But with the stats I had on my website before, I know that people were still going to back catalog episodes. And most of it comes from LinkedIn, it looks like, or other social media shares. So it's really fascinating. That's a really unique-ish thing for a podcast. So I'm like, I think that's cool. I think that's like a strength of the podcast, is that the content is enduring in some way. I'm trying to think through ways to, bring it forward. Cause a lot of the stuff, like the weekly stuff we record, you and I, it's pretty stateful.
Yes. Yeah. Because usually something happens that we end up talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. But the rest of the stuff, I try to do interviews, and I think like a good interview is always pertinent. Like we're obviously talking about topical stuff in a lot of the interviews, but also not topical, but like not current event type stuff.
Yeah. 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 I don't remember if we had talked about this in the past before, but I know you and I have personally talked about statistics on podcasting platforms, at least when we first started recording it. So as a quick summary, the benefit you're getting here is by hosting all of your information, you can see bandwidth. And you have some sense that something doesn't match up with the reported listenership.
I have evidence,
right.
And how the bandwidth works is like someone or something is downloading that. This isn't some made up. A lot of user tracking and profiling, and it's all made up. And I think a lot of people don't really understand how made up it is. And in the traditional, like if I were to sell ads or want to get in some sort of a partnership, they tend to look at audience size, and the biggest indicator of that is downloads, which is interesting because, again, like I've seen, I don't know what they doubled, literally the listeners, quote unquote, doubled in 6 months, which is in any kind of industry is massive. I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but I think it was like 3 figures of listeners per episode between January and there's three numbers. I don't remember exactly. It wasn't like 900 or something like that. It was pretty low 3 figures, but I was like, holy, like I did the math and I was like, damn, like that's a lot of downloads for episodes.
Yeah.
So like it's 3 figures a month per episode ish. It's like it depends. I don't know if I've said this publicly. I don't know if I will. There is a person who's been featured on the podcast who is still driving traffic somehow to the interview that we did.
That's cool.
Yeah. And that's what I mean. This back catalog thing is they're still being downloaded. Again, if it's a bot, it's a really bad bot because you're just downloading the same over and over again of your old content. But I also see enough stuff coming in through LinkedIn where that post is still circulating and resonating on that platform and driving content. So yeah, it's been a really interesting thing. Sorry. So yeah, so if I was going to have a relationship with an ad or a brand or whatever, they're looking at how many people listen, which is usually downloads. The thing with that is that everybody's podcast player typically downloads automatically when you subscribe. It doesn't mean you listened. There are some technologies out there that'll ping back. If you listen, the podcast player has to support it. Yeah. I hate that because I don't want to track people. I'm very anti-tracking. Like I am a very big data person. I've worked in data stuff. I've built data things, But I also, the more you aggregate about a unique individual, the weirder the world gets, and I don't want to contribute to that. And there's ways to do it anonymously, right? You just lose. I don't know if men or women are more interested in my content. I don't know the age groups. Like, I don't know if I care. I just care that people are listening, and seeing that go up is nice.
Yeah. I do have a question, and I don't mean to throw you in for a loop, but you mentioned you don't really care about listener count. What do you care about then? Why do you do this?
I think it's fun.
Okay.
Yeah. The weekly thing, we did this, we're chatting weekly anyway, just catching up.
Yeah.
And then we were talking, and maybe other people might benefit from it. Maybe not. I don't know. It takes me maybe 20 minutes to edit it down. Again, I don't really edit these, mostly just for like silences. And if we say something we need to redact, I'll do that. But it's pretty rare that I'm a very transparent person by nature. So I don't really have secrets. Like, I have a product we can talk about that I'm being a little cagey on because of that's unfortunately how business is. But it's also, if it were all leaked tomorrow, I'd be like, whatever, it's not the end of the world. So there's that. And then it doesn't take that much time. I think it's like 20 minutes again to get it up and running. So it's whatever. That's getting shorter. Like, it used to be an hour, and I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. I got down to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident I can get this into almost a point and click when we're done. Get it within 5, maybe 10 minutes. And then the interviews are really fun for me because I get to talk to people, some of whom I know, some of whom I've like became friends with or like contacts with. I don't know how this works anymore, but with people, and then random people.
Wait, what?
I don't know what a friend is in 2025. Everyone, all the verbs for things. It's not like I'm like hanging out with these people daily that I podcast with, but it's I keep in contact with folks. And one of the intents of this whole idea behind 3reate was that I have the reoccurring guests on to do an update and to talk through new challenges and build a longer story, because so much of the podcast syndicate is like point in time that's like kind of interesting, but everyone's doing that. And the whole point of inspiring people to be creative is getting to understand that, the one hit wonder or like the lucky factor that happens all the time. But if you actually want to make this repetitive, or you actually want to build cool, you can't that one time and done. Okay, fine. But you're going to try something else. You're going to probably fail a lot again until maybe you hit another one. Maybe you never do. It's very possible that you get lucky, and that's just how it works. But I want to keep expanding that for people, and I want to see more people working with creativity instead of more of the capitalist model is like, how can I make a quick buck, or like, how do I find a market to serve? Because most of the cool that we have in our society did not come from that model. It actually came from, wouldn't it be really cool if I could take an image on a computer instead of having film, digital photography? I'm sure there are people trying to like make money from that, but the guy who is credited with inventing it was like, it's obvious. And then there was another guy who is credited with, forget what the technology is. He was the first person to capture a digital image and put it on the internet in like 1991, I think. And he transmitted it wireless. So he's some nerd, and he got a kid, right? And so he wanted to put this on the website, on the web, back in the days of dial-up, for everybody to see in his family. And so he like built some signal processor translator to take the digital camera image and transcode it into some sort of like method to put it on the internet. And there's I should say if I can try to find that again, because the article is like wild. It's just some, and I forget what technology he ended up inventing, but it's some sort of very key like image compression, or maybe he invented JPEG or something. I don't remember, but like
makes sense.
But just this trying to solve a problem, or he was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if? That's a creative process. Wouldn't it be cool if? And maybe it goes nowhere. I have all sorts of friends. I think you're maybe one of them who tinkers on all the time. And it's not going to pan out to make money. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Right?
No, for sure. I mean, we have a technical perspective here, but the thing behind 3reate is not just technology; it's art as well. Exactly. And it's the same with art. You take several drafts of something you're writing, or reworking a piece of art that you're doing, right? So it is about the whole process of doing things because you want to, and then it turns out to be something nice, and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah,
maybe a lot of times it doesn't.
Right. But that's how you improve, right? Nobody sat down and drew an amazing image or painted an amazing picture. Like, probably everybody starts with a stick figure, right? I'm sure there's somebody out there who didn't, but like you draw a circle, you draw a line down, you draw a cross through it, and you draw some branches, and you have hands and a feet and a head, right? And if that's where we would be if nobody was like, what if it was thicker, or what if it resembled a hand more, and then the rest is history. So that's part of it. But I really enjoy the interviews. I've always liked learning. I've always been curious about people. I went to journalism school once upon a time. I wanted to do that. That's not really a career in 2025. It
as
is,
a podcaster, you can be.
Exactly. And so I scratched that itch with the podcast then. And I get to learn from the people who are actually doing this. And I have scientists on, I have artists on. Art on a podcast is hard. It's more about process and it's more about perseverance. But when it comes to like science people, it's like awesome to talk to like an actual scientist who's doing actual stuff instead of reading the paper or listening to the news article about it. It's really cool talking with business people who are founding companies, or I have another person I'm going to have on who is in the venture business. They're one of the only people I talk favorably about in that business, and the fund that they work for is how I have not personally worked with them. I would recommend them.
You may have mentioned this person in our personal conversations in passing.
Yeah.
Yes. It's going to be very obvious when that episode airs, right?
ABC, always be selling. But yeah, so I'm trying to have, I think it'd be interesting to try to have everybody on from last year, or the last couple years. I've been doing this since 2023 now.
Wow.
Yeah. Found that out last night.
Which reminds me of, how long have we known each other?
That's a good question, actually.
It's got to be like 5 years, because we started talking around COVID.
It was. I think it was around COVID, because it was, I think so, yeah, because I was doing a lot of video.
Everyone
it was either
was
right
COVID.
before COVID, or it was, maybe it was before. This is a problem I have. Like, most of the people that I like actually keep in contact with, or like close contact, I couldn't tell you how.
That's a good problem to have, right? It felt like we've known each other forever. I
have no idea. I read an article, I remember a couple years ago, about how Gen Z would have like lunch parties where they would put all their phones in a pile so no one could be on it. And the
first person to reach for their phone, has to pay for the bill.
And someone was like, "Oh, how brave!" And I'm like, "How sad." Like, I usually when I sit down at a table or something, I'll take my phone out, put it screen down, just because it's like in my pocket. It's uncomfortable. And I don't look at it, right? It's screen down, so you can text me all day. It doesn't make any noise. It doesn't vibrate. Go for it. And then I'll check it when I want. And I have an Apple Watch I wear, but I don't know if we've talked about this, but I have profiles set so that I don't get any notifications. I don't even see them.
Oh, so your smartwatch is fit tracker, basically? Or
I have it for time, which is weird, right? I like the time.
I was gonna say.
On my watch screen, so on my watch screen, I have my activity rings, so I can at a glance see how much calorie, exercise, and standing I've done.
Yeah.
It nags me when I don't do enough of it, which I love. I have the weather, because it's the Pacific Northwest. Like in the summer, it's usually fine, but the weather here is always a little unpredictable, but the weather forecasts are like pretty good. If it's going to rain in the afternoon, it's probably going to rain in the afternoon. So you can prepare. I have the air quality, because also it changes drastically, and I like to know if it's going to be really unhealthy. The time, the date, and then I have the text message bubble thing with the number of text messages, so I can just quick tap it if someone texts me or whatever, or if I need to text someone. However, with Apple's focus mode, during the day specifically, I have it so that I don't see the number of text messages. They go away. You can hide notifications from coming in, and you can also hide badges on icons, which is that number.
Yeah, the number.
And during the day, I'm blissfully ignorant of anything that happens unless I check it. Yeah, no, and it's awesome. And then I have a few people, I think 3, maybe 4, who can break through that. So if they text me, like, I want to know, and like they generally don't, or even if they do, I'm like, I want to know, and like I don't care if I'm doing. And sometimes I'll silence that, or I have another mode where it will squelch everything if I'm in a meeting or doing a podcast or something like this. But yeah, when I'm at dinner with people or just hanging out with people, I generally put that on so I don't have the distraction, because I'd much rather be spending the time in person with people, and so few people will do that. It's really strange. It's weird for me to talk about it, because 20 years ago that would be the opposite. Everybody would be like, oh, you have your phone? That's weird. And the iPhone was around, right? It was a thing, but it was still like clunky, didn't work super well.
Yeah. I think if you look at a bunch of different podcasts, a lot of podcasts probably talk about the same topic as well. Yeah. Yes, there's something about the smartphone that sort of made its way and ingrained itself into the way we interact and engage with each other.
And all the apps. And to be honest, sure, I'm not on Instagram, like the channel or the podcast has a profile channel. I don't know what they're called on Instagram.
You must have created it.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Yeah, no, I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I have an account, I guess, as a business.
Yeah, an account, yes. Yeah. Sure, we'll go with that.
Yeah, and so I'm aware of it. Before 2 years ago, I'd never touched the thing. I didn't really care. And I've been doing a little bit of research. I think we don't know if we talked about this, but I've been thinking about doing clips on other platforms to try to drive listenership or just expand. You have to market yourself, because organic discovery, I think, is completely impossible in 2025. I'm very, very strongly opinioned on that. I think a lot of people...
That's something we should talk about that in the future one day.
Yeah, I think people who claim organic discovery are bullshit. I think they're paying for it, or they're doing tricks behind the scenes to do it. Once you're in the algorithm, organic discovery of content, I think, is potential. But like from a brand new, as a podcast on Spotify, they tell me how many impressions I get or whatever, and it's vanishingly small. And I even was trying to play around with that a little bit too, to understand how it works, because I don't use Spotify. And I was searching for like the name of the podcast, and it didn't show up. And I was like, that's bullshit, right? Like, it's a very unique name. At minimum, that should display in your search results.
I swear I searched the podcast before and I've seen it come up.
Oh, no, this was a while ago, so I think it works now.
Okay.
Because I've probably done it enough where they're like, oh, this search keeps coming up and it errors, right? But then like different pieces of or titles of stuff, and it's the big name podcasters who are always, and that's probably what most people are interested in. But again, like organic discovery would be like, oh, I've never heard of this 3reate thing, and there's this episode, and click, oh yeah, that's an interesting topic, I'd give it a listen. And maybe you don't listen to the whole thing, but I chapter for this reason. If you want to just come in and listen to a segment about what we talk about, and I have a lot of friends who tell me like, I can't listen to you drone on for an hour.
Yeah.
Thanks, friends. You know who you are, David.
Oh, call out. No, as a little teaser for the discovery problem, right? I think if you try to look at it without any preconceived notion of what it's trying to do, from someone who's delivering content, if you're trying to get people to find things that they would find interesting, I think there's a natural process by which there will be specific podcasts that have a positive feedback loop. As more people listen to it, as a platform provider, you're like, okay, maybe more people want to listen to this, and therefore you bump up that result in whether it's a recommendation or a search, even if it's not directly related to what you're looking for. It's an interesting problem, is what I'm trying to say, and I don't know that there's a very clean way of trying to solve it. But it's very relevant to you right now.
It's the anti-pattern in a lot of ways. And like we've talked about this, I think, before, where like how do I get my news, or how do I find new stuff? And it's really hard because it usually takes a lot of time. I was using Feedly for a long time to aggregate all this stuff. And then it just became noise, and it became a thing to maintain, and it became a thing to read. And then their algorithm started to prioritize the same kind of sources. And I don't think there's anything wrong with pop information or pop news or like that kind of stuff. But that's not what I'm interested in. Yeah, I want to know generally what's going on, but I'm really interested in novel stuff. I'm interested in innovation and creativity, and that's not necessarily the result, right? Or somebody trying something that doesn't really have widespread attention or adoption yet. That's what I'm interested in. It's thinking about it a little bit. It's similar to the VC problem of like, how do I find a company to invest in? And a lot of companies will pitch you, but or how do I find the new band? Right.
Right.
There's always,
and that all falls under the discovery problem, I think, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But there's a conference you go to, or a startup night, or for a band, it would be like a performance venue that has
a bar.
Yeah. But they used to have, it was really common in like the 80s and 90s, which is where like a lot of the grunge bands that are super famous now would play. It was like Wednesday night jam night or Thursday night sessions. And there's 8 people in the bar or the dance club, and it was basically free to get in. And I have a friend actually who lived in Portland, and she saw Nirvana like in 15 people.
Yeah.
Because they were just some kids from Seattle doing the Portland Seattle loop kind of thing. And they had some show somewhere else on Friday, so they were playing a shitty club Thursday night. Yeah. And the rest is no one who knew who these people were. And then my understanding with Nirvana is like the second you saw that, I never saw them live, unfortunately, or they were like coming up. But when you immediately were like, these guys are going somewhere. They were just like that good. The sound they were polished, and so it didn't take very long. But Soundgarden was the same way. Like I think they did that for a couple years, and now it's like, and now everyone, all these boomers talking about boomer music.
No, using music is a very good example.
Yeah.
And I was just thinking, we were talking about first principles, I think, not too long ago. But this idea of discovery, I think, is a first principle where regardless of what industry you're in, you're going to have this problem of how do you get people to know who you are or what you do. And in music, I can't say that this is exactly how it works, but oftentimes you have people who have a bigger audience have an opener for them, and those openers are usually not people you really heard about. So the opener is trying to leverage the audience that the main act actually has to get their name out there.
Exactly.
And sometimes it works, right? So it's like these dynamics are the interesting things I think about.
Yeah, and a lot of the headliners would pay it back. Pay it forward.
Yes.
That way too.
Of course.
Comedy is kind of the same way still. A lot of the big name comics will bring people from clubs who like do a good job in the club and need a little bit of a break. That also is vanishingly rare and a vanishingly small opportunity. And like we live in this world where I can instantly talk to somebody in space. Right? I can talk to an astronaut. But
quote unquote instantly.
Yeah,
but it takes time for the signal to get there. But
but we have people living off our planet, and I can talk to them, but we can't figure out how to like. Andrew's really interested into some genre of music, and here's who we think might be big, or people you might not have heard of that don't suck. Because it's really easy to find, especially in music, right? It's really easy to find bands who suck. It's really hard to find bands who are like good or learning. Like there's a bar when I was in college that would always have usually pretty decent music, and a lot of the bands came out of there and they were kind of like regional kind of talent, and they got pretty good. But there were some shows that were really rough, and then a year later they had come back through, and you're like, wow, they're like the only thing I didn't like about the show was like they were still learning how to play musical instruments, right? But then a year of practice, and the way to get the practice, so they'd play on like a Wednesday or a Thursday night. Yeah. And then they come back, they play a Friday night spot or a Saturday night spot when it's super busy. So that those types of opportunities for a lot of people are increasingly more rare now. And with part of going kind of back to the podcast, I'm trying to help expose some of that too, where I don't talk to a lot of people, young career, early career. I probably should, but it's a lot of people who are doing what I think are interesting things that you would not hear from, because they're not going to be on Joe Rogan or Huberman or one of these massive podcasts. Probably.
Yeah.
Maybe not. We'll see. I shouldn't say nobody, and I'm not interested in quote unquote celebrity guests, because if you listen to enough podcasts and you listen to a diversity of them, you start to see there's like a circuit that runs, right? It's just like
that was good. Anytime there's like a book coming out, that one author goes on 5 different podcasts, says the same thing over and over again.
And sometimes they're different, or a different interview or a different style, but yeah, it's a lot of the same stuff. They're obviously hawking something. And that's, you got to get the word out, so to speak.
You got to do it.
But at the same time, a couple of the podcasters I've listened to, I think we share a couple of them too, they've said, they're like, I'm done with this. Is boring for me. You come on, you talk about your life story, and then you talk about your book, and then you maybe have an interesting nugget or two in there, and then you rinse, repeat. The thing I liked about podcasts initially was getting to go behind the scenes a little bit more, because it wasn't as scripted, it wasn't as formal. It's not like a newspaper interview. Like most people on podcasts are like lying PR machines anyway, but it's you listen to somebody talk long enough, you can start to see how they think or how they respond, unless they're like a total robot who's just like PR trained and they don't say anything. I don't listen to those people, and most of the podcasts I listen to don't have them because they never say anything. They say a lot of words, but it's just there's nothing of substance ever comes out, because then you might tip the hat. Right. CEOs are really good at that.
Yeah.
Say a lot of words, but say nothing.
A lot of companies do that too. I think you're absolutely right on that. I think the longer conversations, it's very, very difficult to keep up an act for 3 hours. Yep. So having a 3-hour conversation, you really get to understand who the person, whether it's a guest or an interviewer, who they really are.
Should we leave it there and maybe talk through branding?
Yeah.
Next time?
Yes. Yeah, I was looking at the clock.
I know, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right. We'll leave it there. Cool. Awkward ending.
Awkward ending. you can edit it in and do whatever you.
I'm not going to. Magic. I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave the awkward ending.
Oh. Okay. Awkward.
You can find us at 3reate.com. It's like the word create, but with a 3 instead of the C. As always, we encourage you to listen, watch, do. We'll see you next time.
You can support this podcast at patreon.com/3reate or at ko-fi.com/3reate.
Thanks for listening.